the power of culture in the workplace. And now we have a speaker, Fatima. Please come.
Thank you so much. You take very nice pics, and he made it to you.
Yes.
You take pics, no? Okay, so do I really need a microphone to speak to two people? You look nice in that manner. Thank you so much. So my name is Fatima Hassan. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm a practicing lawyer and social worker. I have been doing social development work since last 10 years. And at the moment I'm working in one of the most busiest commercial law chambers in Canada. I think the topic is the power of culture at workplace, and I'm not an expert on this, but definitely something I relate to and something I want to talk about. So I think culture at workplace is an extremely important aspect of our daily lives, as some of us actually spend more time at work than home. Like I work at a litigation chamber, and the minimum hour of work there, like minimum hours you need to spend at the chamber is probably 10 hours. And it gets as bad as 15 hours and 16 hours in a day. So many of you would agree with me with the fact that you need to have real skills to be a leader in a company and in a workplace, and really have good skills to lead a team at work. So there are so many things to look after when you're looking after an office, and I think the only way forward and the only way you can progress is when you have a perfect balance of tradition and culture at workplace. I think not too long ago, not many people actually thought about work culture and the societal pressure that comes at work, especially in the Indian subcontinent, which is a country like Bangladesh. So work culture is really different in Bangladesh, and if I compare it to the UK, where I was living and studying for so many years, and there is certainly a huge difference between work culture in the UK and Bangladesh. So for being progressive and productive, I feel there is a direct link between productiveness and culture. And the thing is, I think none of us want to see a frustrated boss or a frustrated colleague with us. And the faster and more successfully you can create a workable atmosphere and a culture, the better it is for the company and the organization. So the more deliberate the company and the chamber, the organization is in recognizing and developing its own culture, the higher the likelihood that they are going to be successful. Having said that, I think you should also embed culture that is relatable to an individual or a company. And at the same time, maybe if it doesn't work, if you want to put something positive in the company and it's not working, but I still think that you should turn off the negativity and work towards it. Like I'll share something very personal. So when I started working in Bangladesh, I joined one of the busiest commercial law chambers, and I was the only woman working in that office, and now we are 3, so cheers to that. When I joined, it was just me. So we didn't have a women's toilet. Like, it's strange, because I think people from the West wouldn't even have a concept that you can't have a separate women's toilet in a workplace. Yes, we didn't. And we still don't, but at that time we didn't. And within a few months of joining my work, I suffered from terrible UTI and other discomfort, which was related to using public toilets. And so as a result of which I missed going to office, and definitely the productivity declined because I was not contributing to the workplace. I think that's a very important culture that should be embedded and not many people talk about it. So what we did is, when my other friends joined, like colleagues joined, they were women as well. So I was telling them that, we should really do something about this, because it's not possible to be sharing one toilet with other 20 men. And I don't mean all of them didn't have enough proper culture to use the toilet, but some of them made it disgusting. So we decided to put these caution notices around toilets. So as soon as you enter the toilet, you see all the messages, and that was me who was doing that actually. That put your bins there, put the toilet papers there, and all sort of information about how to use a toilet. And I was doing that as a chamber, like a proper litigation chamber. So initially, it didn't work. No matter how many papers and caution notices I've put, it was still dirty. But I think eventually we got there, and now it's a little bit better than how it used to be. And I think another most important aspect of workplace culture that I'm going to talk about is the relationship between you and your senior. Like in our case, we have a senior who we work under, and we are all associates. So I'm not allowed always to communicate my feelings or discomfort or issues with the senior, and apparently that is not what he expects out of me. But I must emphasize on the fact that I do not think that he doesn't want to listen to me, but it's just been years of practice in the office that allow us not to communicate as fully or as openly with the senior. And I do think that this shall change, and I'm trying to take my baby steps in doing this. Like, we should all communicate and listen to each other. And I feel that, we all are human first, and we deserve to have our own experiences, own places, and own dignity. So as a reference, you might like to check out an interesting post on Huffington Post blog, which says cultural acupuncture. Actually, this was the post picked up after what Peter Drucker famously said about culture eating strategy for breakfast. Yeah, so it's widely accepted that culture is a prime driver of organizational performance, but that does not mean that culture is more important than strategy, but rather that strategy developed without consciousness of company culture will be ineffective. So now let's dig into behavior a bit. So at this day and age, people think they can say anything and everything, and they can do anything and everything, but that's not always the goal. So you cannot suddenly put your frustrations into somebody else, or you're probably frustrated with somebody else and you're taking out your peace of mind on somebody else. And this is, I think this is something I've seen everywhere. And at least every person have done that at least once in their lifetime. I'm sure we all have. So I think culture plays a huge role on your behavior, and especially at a workplace. So my father is a founder director of a bank in Bangladesh, and he's been an industrialist in business for over 40 years. So his first employees are still with him. So I call that power, I call that culture, and that's something he has embedded in his company and his workplace, that they're still with him for over 40 years. So I think when you are in a beautiful working environment, you increase your productivity, good hormones. Hormones are something I'm researching on, and there are more chances that you'll be successful. And so yeah, I think these kind of issues probably are more applicable in Desi culture, like Indian subcontinent. But I think at the end of the day, it works everywhere, like around the globe, so some way or the other. So I myself run projects, but I do care about my team, the mental health of them, or the physical health of them. But not many would think about it, even probably a few years back. So I want to let them know that when you have a good working culture, it's actually more progressive, and you end up giving to the society, giving to the world. And so yeah, I think another thing I'm just going to go short, like every person and every individual should grow each day, and that's what I really think. And you should add dimensions in your life.
So age or the number of hours you work in a day do not determine your culture or success. One should enable them to learn every day, improve every day, and have individual ability to see things differently. And that is when you will overcome the boundaries of the dilemma that you are in and come to terms with the limitations your workplace has or your office has. So another cultural thing is body language. Often a certain kind of body language can have such a huge impact on your productivity. So for example, if I came entering this room, like, not talking to anybody, so I didn't say anything, but that was my body language. So you would made up something in your mind that, okay, you'll judge me in this second. Like, I would do that. So I think body language is something that should be maintained or coached for in workplaces. And there should be proper culture at workplace for empowering your associates, your employees, and no one shall be feeling unsuccessful or unwanted at the workplace. And there should be culture in the offices to make your employees and associates feel wanted, happy, and successful. And that is when you contribute towards a more active workforce and a progressive one, definitely. So conflicts should be dealt with and solved rather than throwing mud at each other or probably saying nasty lines, which happens in every offices, I think. So I was very keen to know that Ben & Jerry's continuously empowers its employees through well-paying jobs and community services. And of course, their employees also have the chance of, sorry, beg your pardon, naming their ice cream flavors. So I think that's a very nice way of involving your employees, and that's the culture they've created, and a beautiful one. And so finally, the mentality. I think it's time mentalities should change at workplaces. I mean, you can have fun and do all the cases, like in my case, it's law, so you can have fun and at the same time deal with very important law matters. Or, if you're working in any other industries, I mean, I think workplace culture is the most powerful tool that anybody can create and contribute towards the society. And most finally, I would say we should all talk about cultures, share our ideas, create groups, and talk about investing in better behavior, better mindset, and healthy living. And it's not about how many hours you spend at the office, or, it's about how productive you've been or how progressive you are in life. So if you think you could make a positive impact at your offices and your workplace, go out and talk about your success stories, bring changes to have positive cultures at work. And also, culture at work shall be healthy, happy, and positive. And we definitely want more smiles than frowns. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your speech. And now we have Anuja, ma'am. Please come.
So power of culture. So Fatima really picked up on a few things which are very, very important from a culture building perspective. This is a photo session as well, so photo culture as well, which these millennials have brought us into. But defining what is culture? And so I was just talking to somebody on culture, and I think culture is like that air, which you cannot see, but you can feel it. You need it. You cannot survive a second without air. There have been a lot of discussions around the Gurgaon air not being clean, etc. And culture is just like that. If the culture is not clean, we all suffer. We all suffer on a day-to-day basis in terms of no problem. Yeah. In terms of our well-being, our mental well-being, our physical well-being. living as well, because if the culture is not right, we carry stress back home, and if we carry stress back home, we're reading about hormones, as in the hormones which get secreted in high stress are not good. So culture, like air, is very, very important. And I thought I'll share my personal story actually in these 10 minutes and not talk a lot of Fatima's already covered around the theory of strategy, being eaten over the breakfast, the culture is not right. So I'm a chartered accountant, and I was doing my articleship with a Big Four, to say so. Big Four are the major consulting organizations. I was working with PwC. And so for doing articleship, for doing chartered accountancy, you got to do articleship. That means you got to work under somebody to get trained to be an accountant. So we used to go to a lot of offices, a lot of government offices as well. And you were talking about no toilets being there. I was actually considered to be the spouse of somebody actually. It was such a male-dominated place that I was always considered that she's the spouse of one of them. And I also overheard speculations that I'm the spouse of which person. Because the only thing which people thought for women to be was to be a spouse of somebody. And this inclusive or non-inclusive work environment was really getting on my nerves. And that time I had two options, either quit or continue. Obviously decided to continue, but a lot of people quit at that point of time, very clearly articulating that a lot of times you get everything right, but if you don't have the culture, then the best of the people leave. The worst of the people also leave, which could be the best, but yes, people leave. I continued on this journey. There were times when there were no toilets. I also suffered from UTI in Fatima for a long time. There were times when for any outstation travel, women was told, no, sorry, you can't do it. And if you asked why, as in I'm equally competent. And the answer would be, you know what, it requires travel. You may have to go in a train. And I was like, I travel in train with my parents. Why can't I travel in a train when I'm going for work? Did have a few, I won't say fights, but not such healthy conversations with people involved in terms of decision making to get there, to do things which people really wanted to do. I did do my chartered accountancy, qualified, joined another organization, but the story continues, as in if you see everywhere. Now obviously with the D&I focus which is going on, you keep hiring women, so basic things like travel, washrooms, etc. have sorted out, but still an inclusive work culture is something which the organizations are really aiming to build. I'm also a mentor in my organization, so I say three things which I did in the last 10 to 15 years to build a culture around me. So I can't change the world, but I can definitely change the world around me at least. First, I decided not to quit, which means I stood for myself. Irrespective of what shit was being thrown on me, I stood for myself and I said, yes, I can do it. Secondly, I kept raising my hand. I kept raising my hand for anything and everything which could come up with. Also making sure that the ecosystem in which I was working is cognizant of the fact that I want to be treated equally. I want that culture to be built. Over a period of 5 to 6 years, there was enough appreciation, not only for me, but for a lot of people like me to be there, to be heard, persuasive. And third, which is the most important thing in building the culture around me, I kept saying the same thing to all my VA counterparts. So there's a lot of focus on BNI. So you have trainings for women, you have Women Economic Forum, you have so many things happening centered around women. I was trying to do something different in which I was telling the men that you need to be trained. I don't need to be trained. You need to be trained on making me feel included. And this actually, initially the people were really upset, as in they were like, what is she saying? As in, why do we need training? Because the main egos which are there. And gradually it just became on, and everybody, there was this appreciation which happened very quickly that it is not the women who need to be trained, it is the culture also which needs to be changed around us. And as I kept talking, I built an army of women talking with me on the same line, and today we are on that platform that we are currently having more awareness sessions for men who think that women who are getting married may leave. Women who have conceived may not need to be promoted because they're in any case going to go on maternity leave and may or may not come back. And this cultural change is taking a shift. While the journey, as in while you narrated, it sounds simple. Yes, it has been difficult. It has been topsy-turvy. There have been times when I said, let's quit it. I've got people to manage. So I'll take care of the child at home. Why bother around it? But yes, as in this, the progress which I see my women mentees doing just gives me a lot of confidence that it's not that one cannot change the world or one cannot change the culture. If we only take responsibility of changing the culture amongst our immediate circle, imagine the circles which are going to be made, and imagine the power which we could bring to this. That's all I had to share. Thank you so much for listening. Do we have Tanya or Katie?
Maybe I don't like Afghan. Should I go?
Yes, yeah, please.
Now we have Katya for speak.
Okay, good afternoon. Culture for us, as we have seen, is very important. Culture actually is the way we behave and everywhere. And before, of course, nobody cared about culture and nobody did anything about culture. It was just something that happened in the workplace. From a couple of years until now, culture has become very important because everybody has realized how it influences people, as my predecessors just said. The problem is that you can establish a certain culture, but you cannot change what people do or what people think. And that's a huge problem. Why? Because we have like 3 different levels of culture. There are like the way we actually want it to be, the artifacts that we establish, the way we set how we want people to enact certain values and behave in certain ways. That supposedly is the conscious part of the culture, because we expect everybody to behave according to this and to these standards. Then we have values, the values that every culture or every organization sets, and we publicize. We can establish them in the walls, and we can say that we are entrepreneurs or that we are good in leadership or passionate and things like that. But those are just on the walls or on the books or on the policies, and nobody cares for them. And the other one, or the last one, has to do with the fact that what people actually act and how people actually behave. And that's the unconscious part, because I can say that I want everybody to be an entrepreneur at the organization and that I allow everybody to talk and to ask for different things. And I establish that in my values and I announce them as legit, and I can place them on walls and give them as policies. But when people actually raise their hands, probably I'm going to say no. And here is what I'm going to tell you about myself. For example, a certain time ago, I'm an outspoken woman. When I see something that is not going to happen or that is going to be wrong, I raise my hand and I say, okay, I think this is not going to work because of this and this and this, or I think this has to be done like this, because I expose the way I think, because I want everything to be right or to have a good standard or quality. And I had a certain boss that once that I said that, he called me and he said, no, you are not understanding how everything works here. And I said, like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you cannot say what you think. You cannot say anything that is wrong. And I was like, really? What are you talking about? Yes, because you are publicly saying things that are not right. And I was like, okay, but we are in a meeting, so we are supposed to discuss things in order to make them better, and then to apply them, in this case, for example, because I work at a university, to apply them to our system and make everything better, and to give a certain high standard or quality to our students. And he said, no. If you don't have anything good to say, like cheering up what I'm saying, then shut up. I don't want you to talk. And then another lady, and she was from Human Resources, she said, yes, remember, two guys, the names of 2 guys, Remember how they complain, how they talk about things that are not right? Yes, I do exactly the same. No, they are propositive, they are proactive, and you are negative. So if you don't change, then you are going to be out. We are going to fire you. And what I said is, okay, do whatever you want, do whatever you decide, but I am not going to go against my values. And that's one of the things that has to do with culture, because the problem is that leaders shape culture. And if leaders don't enact the values that they are establishing as the standard, and they behave differently than that, then we have a problem, because nothing is going to happen. So we can have like the set of rules established in paper, we can have them in the policies, we can have them everywhere as artifacts, the rituals and ceremonies that we enact. We can have them as the values established as legit for the company, but if leaders don't react according to them, if they don't behave according to them, then there's nothing going to happen. And then what actually comes out is their biases and the way they think of it. So the power of culture is something that starts with awareness. Awareness of who we are. Awareness of why do I think this is right or this is wrong. Because that's my culture, the inner culture that I bring to my workplace. And I don't necessarily have it aligned with the organizational culture. That's why it's so important to attract or to recruit, attract, and select the people that fits to organizational culture and that really enacts it. And for example, one of the most important things that I've realized is, many investigations back me up, is that if you use people's strengths in their workplace, they are more productive, they are more happy, they are more satisfied, the customers are more satisfied. And that means that you have to be clear, you have to use their strengths in their job. And if you don't do that, they are going to enact things that are not who they are. And the problem is that they are going to be facing more stress. They are going to, as you said, they are going to be people that are trying to fit or fake something. So one of the most important things that has to do with culture aside is that leaders must be measured and must be, their performance must be measured against how their employees think about them. And regularly, people are measured according to what the leader thinks about them, up to down, not down to up. So from up, down to up, the employees must measure how leaders enact or not the values of the company. And this is not a common practice. And many companies are afraid of measuring this because they know that their leaders are not going to be seen as the excellent leaders as they want them to be. So that's a problem. But when you start using people for their strengths, managers or employees, collaborators, or the leaders of the company, and you measure them according to that, and you assign them a task according to who they are and how that fits the company, then you are going to establish a different way of understanding the culture of the organization. So one of the most important aspects that we have to consider right now is how conscious are we of the business. And how conscious are we of the purpose of the business, and how conscious are the leaders on how we want them to behave and how we want everybody to behave inside the company. Because otherwise, if we don't pay attention to the actual behavior, we are just saying things that are on the wall and that's it. So I think that one of the most important things, as I said before, is awareness, but also measuring performance. And this performance has to go aligned with the values. So we need to start involving the ROI, return of investment of intangibles, in the companies, and not only the objective part or the quantitative part of the company. And this is something some companies are starting to do, but we have to do it everywhere in order to create an equilibrium between what actually we say is happening and what we want to be happening. And well, with that said, I think we need to understand that also well-being is an important part of this, and culture has to be aligned with the well-being of people, and that's why I was talking about strength. So I think for now is everything I have to say, but the power of culture resides in people's behavior, and we need to measure that, and we need to do something with that. And thank you very much.